Louis, I apologize for the long title. It's a good thing that Ilya already introduced what WCAG stands for, because otherwise it'd be even longer. But thanks, everyone. I'm Kelvin. This is Charlotte. And Charlotte's an interaction designer, and I'm a content designer. Is the sound okay? Okay. Sounds very tinny up here. So we're here to talk about a recent piece of work we did to introduce accessibility guidance into the design system. So this is a talk about how we did it and what we learned along the way. So if you're reading this title in your head, read it as introducing WCAG 2.2 guidance into design system, rather than introducing WCAG 2.2 guidance. But let's go. First, a little bit about where we work. Charlotte and I work in the Government Digital Service, or GDS, and it's part of government. Even though we don't work in Whitehall, GDS is a central part of government. It has a central role. It's a unit of the Cabinet Office, and that's a ministerial department that supports the Prime Minister and ensures the effective running of government. GDS's mission is to design and protect the user experience of government. And we do this in three parts. One is maintaining a clear, easy to navigate, and welcoming front door to government. The second is building common platforms to help departments and make better digital services, such as a design system. And number three is using our unique position at the center of government to connect the dots and provide users with a seamless experience online. The most visible part of this is the gov.uk website and how it presents itself as one website and the gov.uk website. Of course, it's not that simple. It's not just one website, but it makes it simple for everyone to interact with government. So we're going to dig a little bit more into that. But first, the slide of big impressive numbers. GovUK is an essential part of living, working, and studying in the UK. 100% of the UK population have heard of us. I don't know exactly where we got that number, but these were the slides I was given. And of course, this makes us one of the most famous digital services websites in the UK. Infamy is not the same as trust. It's not always a good thing, but we do know that 76% of people asked trust that information on GovUK is accurate and reliable. It's a large site. It's got 700,000 plus pages, 10.8 million weekly visitors. And for those of you keeping track on mobile adoption, 71% of our visits come from mobile. And so while gov.uk looks like a single thing to the user, the experience is actually shared across many departments across government. So GDS, where we are in charge of the infrastructure and tools to publish content. And we also manage the most viewed content on GovUK. So anything you kind of access directly from the gov.uk homepage, a few levels down. And this is content that's the most viewed, such as how to apply for a UK passport. Individual government departments manage all remaining content. And they also build the services that users need to transact with them. So let me just finish the slide here. Build a digital service that citizens need to interact with them. And some of this, so if you imagine the content to apply for a passport, it'd be the government department that works on the service to apply for a passport. Now, new services, even though they're created by individual departments, need to meet certain standards. So new services are assured against the government service standard and technology code of practice, and they don't go live until they meet those standards. On the flip side of that, in a carrot and stick kind of approach, we also provide the guidance and resources to continuously support service teams. Which finally brings us to our humble GovUK design system. The design system contains the styles, components, and patterns team need to make services that look and behave like gov.uk. Everything in the design system is based on user research and comes with guidance and coded examples. We're a contribution-based design system, so we rely a lot on some of those design system champions that we spoke about a little bit earlier, so teams can benefit from the research and experience from other government teams. Now, some of you probably know that measuring success of a design system is always tricky. But to show how well a design system is, we do know that it's used by over 1,000 services. There have been over 8 million downloads of gov.uk front end, which is our code base. And since launch, we estimate that we saved the UK government about £38 million.
It's me. Right, so that now brings us to our most recent work. And Kevin's already given you the joke about WCAG, so I won't go there. But WCAG 2.2 guidance is the latest version of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. That's that acronym again. That all public sector organisations are legally obligated to meet. And to help service teams get ready, we've made updates across the entire design system. This is new. Woohoo! We took a new approach for this, and it has resulted in a lot of new content. We've written over 70 pieces of guidance, which eventually have published to about 40 new pieces of guidance, and these are all relating to WCAG 2.2. Now for my disclaimer. Our work to make the GOVUK design system meet public sector accessibility regulations is a continuous and iterative process. So what we're saying is that all this could be considered an experiment. That's because so far we've tended to give accessibility recommendations as part of general guidance without specifically calling it out. Accessibility is a central part of the 10 government design principles, which you can see on the slide right now in poster form, around meeting user needs and providing a good service. Everything we design and build must be accessible to everyone, regardless of whether or not they have impairments in vision, hearing, speech, motor, or cognition. And this also aligns with the principles that WCAG set out. For a user to successfully complete a transaction, whether that is completing a form or just getting information, 4 things need to be in place. If any one of these things fails, the transaction fails. So we'll start with P. That's perceive, being able to receive information through one or more of the senses of sight, hearing, and touch. Touch in the case of braille displays. O for operate, have a means available to complete any action needed from opening a web page, acting on a link, operating a button, filling in a form, control, or operating a media player. U for understand, the content, instructions, navigation all need to be understood. Complex language, jargon are barriers. B, oh, it's actually not B, it's R, isn't it? But be robust. Services must work on the combination of operating system, browser, and assistive technologies used, and not just the latest versions of these. So WCAG 2.2 introduces a new set of criteria, which in some cases might be new concepts for service teams to consider. Right, I like this. This is our before and after screenshot. Can you spot the difference? Woohoo! Anyone? No. This is an example component page. In this case, it's the cookie banner component that I've taken. I'm looking first at the design system navigation bar, which is the grey bar underneath the black bar. You'll see an extra section called accessibility. We also have a WCAG 2.2 summary, which is the thing with the blue line on the right-hand side. And for highlighted on the page to highlight places within the guidance that there are additional pieces of information on WCAG 2.2 criteria. So yeah, this is the part that I haven't practiced. So we're going to see how this one goes. So it's a demo. So this is the GOVUK Design System website. We now have landed on the accessibility section. So the user journey in mind here is for an existing user who's quite familiar with the design system. So one of those departments that Kevin was talking about. And they're looking at how they can improve their service and update it to WCAG 2.2. So by creating this section, we've given sort of a home for all of our accessibility information. So you can see on the left-hand side, we also have our accessibility strategy within this section. But I'm going to click through to the changes to the design system to meet WCAG 2.2. We love catchy titles, don't we? And here you have a bit of information about what you need to do to update your service. And then we go through a list of components and patterns that are affected by the new WCAG 2.2 criteria. And I'm just going to click one of these things. So I've landed on the phase banner component. And as you can see, we have one WCAG 2.2 piece of guidance within there. And I might just quickly skim the page to show you something that changes. But if you go down, you'll see this bit of content there. If you click a link, it will actually highlight. So the reason we've done this is because folks within departments like to share links about certain pieces of guidance. So we can take them straight to the point of contact and we're highlighting it to them. So I think that's it for my demo. So I'll go back to my slides. And over to Cal.
So a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of this work, the challenge, and why did we do this? Using a design system does not immediately make a service accessible. So no matter how hard we try, we can create accessible styles and components and patterns, but they can easily be implemented in inaccessible ways. And that's one of the reasons why traditionally on the design system, we've taken a more integrated, wrapped in kind of approach, rather than trying to think of it as like a tick box list approach to accessibility. So teams need to do their own research, design, development, and testing work to make sure services are accessible. So we want to support services on that and basically help them make good accessibility decisions for their users. As a bit of a context, we're one team amongst many teams and organizations working on accessibility in government. So that means that anything we do on the design system, any guidance we add, and anything we publish needs to work alongside existing resources that other teams have laid out. And this includes WCAG's own resources and content. And I'm not sure how many of you have gone through like the guidelines, but they can be difficult to understand. They're written to be comprehensive and tech agnostic. And for that reason, a lot of times it reads like complicated documentation. So whatever we did, we wanted to avoid reinterpreting or duplicating anything that they've said. And this meant some of our content, while trying to make it as clear and simple as possible, needed to match some of that difficult content. We had to find a way to do this because teams told us, well, they basically told us they expected us to in our surveys and user research. Teams tell us that they have confidence in the accessibility of components, patterns, and styles in the design system. So that's our challenge, no pressure.
So now to how we got there. We quickly realized that it was difficult to share an idea on a solution. So this is where the design sprint method came in. It allowed the team to rapidly test assumptions and big ideas, learn about and be involved in the design process, unite our understanding of the problem. Usually design sprints make the use of a full working week, asking participants to down tools from other work to be more effective. However, in our case, it made the most sense to do with about 7-ish people, 3 days intensive. The concept of a design sprint has already been used in our organization, and designers had worked on a format that we could adapt using the deck that you see on screen now called Facilitating Design Sprints deck. And a design sprint, when broken down into days, usually looks like this. So day 1, understand the problem. Day 2, sketch and decide. Day 3, prototype. Day 4, test. Day 5, analyze. But this is what our 3 days look like. And here's how we made that work in our co-located team, providing a mixture of in-person / hybrid and remote-friendly ways to engage. And this is where we had to be clever with our tooling. In the room, these sketches, which you can see on the slide, were tacked to the wall. We put copies of these online and kept all of our discussions within digital space. So as you can see, the comments below each of these sketches, those were fed in from the room and from folks online. So from the rapid sketching exercises, we were able to quickly form a sense of a user journey for an existing user looking at our design system for WCAG 2.2 related content and guidance. It was a quick way to validate the good ideas. And so you might have thought that we left out day 4 and 5, but sorry, we didn't. We expanded and ran these over the following months, which allowed us to reflect, test hypotheses, iterate and review. It also helped us to recruit people to test with and share some of the testing and analyzing with the wider design system team. So, things we learned from that design sprint. So, the design sprint format that we copied from a bit had a no devices rule. And we used that and that template was created when our teams weren't split across locations and before COVID even happened. So the rule of no devices when running it for remote participants didn't really make sense. So I think that I would like to rephrase that to no distractions. So this is, again, one of our challenges, and this will be me tonight. And thankfully, it's not me right now, but everyone was everywhere. We were at the mercy of the trains. I commute in from Mid Wales, which I think you all learned about, and delays meant that I was kicking off the workshop from a train. And the design sprint was a new way of working for our team. So it wasn't new within our organization, but it was for our team. And usually, our work is very well structured and tested. We wanted to get a bit messy so we could quickly assess ideas and validate the good ones. We could have done more to get folks familiar with the sprint format in advance. That's what we found out. We ran an async retro, which is what you can see on the board here in Padlet. It helped us learn for the next time. And over to you, Kevin.
Okay, and this is where I've tricked you all into a content design talk. So this is going to be fun. So assessing, content designing, and writing all these 40 pieces of guidance was a challenge. Here's how we did it. And so it starts with this spreadsheet. This was done by our accessibility specialist who assessed every component and pattern in our design system to try to figure out how they were affected by the WCAG 2.2 criteria. Most importantly, he came up with ratings for applicability and risk level. And from this, he was able to write a set of content briefs for me to work from. So basically saying what was affected and what we could do about it. From there, we paired together to write messages to show how service teams could avoid each issue. At first, we worked on every possible edit individually, but it quickly became clear that this was too unwieldy. It was too difficult to write in a quick manner, and it was too difficult to keep our messages consistent. Because once we'd write something somewhere else, we realized we talked about it in another piece, and then we'd end up working across a lot of different pieces. It got very confusing. So instead, I came onto the idea of a structured content-inspired approach. So in short, this is the idea that we could write content once and reuse it as many different places as possible. So we looked for ways that we could go on all those lines in the spreadsheet and identify common issues, group them together, and start assigning attributes to them. And these attributes let us come up with some common solutions and build messages that we could reuse where relevant. So here's the template we decided on for all our WCAG 2.2 messages based on the attributes that we identified. Each messages would start with when an issue might happen and then go into what to do about it. We also considered how likely an issue is to happen, and that kind of controls kind of like how strong the messaging needed to be. And so in theory, we could write text snippets from each attribute and then join them up together, concatenating them into a paragraph. So you can see how some of this work looks like on this worksheet, which we used as a copy deck. This is our work where we decided attributes, grouped them together, and started writing messages for each, basically seeing whether like they actually made sense once you started joining them up into paragraphs. So here's an example of a message that we gave on our backlink component. where we're basically saying if a user decides to go to a previous task, make sure information they've already entered is pre-populated, and then making sure that we're not superseding any more important advice, instructing them to not pre-populate if the information is no longer valid or when pre-populating would be a major safety or security concern. And so by doing that, we were able to write a lot of consistent advice across different components and patterns. And this kept all our advice consistent, so we weren't contradicting each other, but also relevant in each instance that we were putting on this accessibility advice. So things we learned. One is be ready to do a lot of detective work, especially if you have a larger design system such as ours, because this was a huge task for us, and we could not have done this without a lot of investigation. The whole team got trained up in being familiar with the new WCAG 2.2 criteria, and we had to do a lot of work spotting issues, connecting the dots to find common issues, and only when we had that overview, we were able to understand how we could solve them. Be ready to revisit previous design decisions and evidence. We often had to expand our guidance on topics we'd only briefly mentioned previously. And this was needed so we could give the needed context to go deep down into WCAG 2.2 message. Now, on the design system team, we usually capture decisions on backlog discussions on GitHub, or communicate them directly to users like through emails, which helped a lot. But a design history with evidence on hand would have made that a lot easier for us and go a lot faster. Be comfortable talking about bad implementations and the things you don't want to see happen. As a content designer, I'm always trying to keep messages absolutely clear. So ideally, I'd like a component or like a pattern page to simply say what to do, what not to do, focus on the good implementations. But this work meant, because we were warning about things not to do, we had to go into excruciating detail about bad implementations. We spent a lot of space on it. And even though this took up a lot of space on our pages, I had to keep in mind that we were giving useful information, and that this was okay, even though the page was not as clear or even as forceful as I would have liked it to be. Which brings me to my last point, that you have to trust teams to make the right decisions for their users. Sometimes it's not about getting teams to follow your guidance precisely and telling them what to do, but providing them with good information. Teams will use your design system in their own way, that whatever's best for them. And you need to trust that they'll make the right decisions for their users. So that is our talk. Thanks for listening. As a shameless plug, if you're interested in following more of the work on the gov.uk design system, we do have a website and we have a community section, and we do lots of things, including monthly community chats, workshops, co-design collaborations, and we also host an event of our own called Design System Day. If you want to just check out our page, it'll show you all the different ways you can get involved with us.